Hello dear viewers, and welcome back again to Good Morning Kuwait. And as always, we promise you with the latest news, reports, and also guests. Now today, whether you're facing a global or personal crisis or a mix of both, building resilience can help you cope with stress, overcome adversity, and enjoy the better days to come. Now lately, the world seems to be lurching from one crisis to another. We've experienced a global pandemic, dramatic changes to how we conduct our daily lives, economic uncertainty, and political and social turmoil, as well as an array of natural disasters. Then there are personal traumas that people are personal and dealing with, whether source of disruption in your life, in a global emergency, or a personal tragedy, or both living through difficult times, can take a heavy toll on your mood, health, and outlook. To know how to deal with this all, well, let's welcome Faten Osseili, life coach, business, and a communication coach, manager of Mastermind Management Consultancy, handling fear, anxiety, and leadership during times of crisis and uncertainty. And welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right. So let's start with the first question, is that why do crises and wars trigger such intense fear and anxiety in people?
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for having me. This is a much heavy question that everyone is facing. And I think it comes from the fact that as humans, we are kind of obsessed with control and with certainty. We would love to know where we're going and what's going to happen to us. So during times of crisis or uncertainty, we lose that sense of control. The thing is that fear is actually a good thing, because it
fear mixed with curiosity, and that's the problem with people. They're always curious to know what's happening.
Exactly. And honestly, a good dose of fear is good, because it's a piece of information. It teaches us that we need to be cautious at this point. We need to slow down. So that's good. However, too much fear is when it turns into dysregulation, trauma, and other upsetting feelings. And that's what we need to control now. What we need to control is the fear, not the circumstances and the outcome. So that's where grounding ourselves becomes a high value, accepting that we need to live with uncertainty, just like what happened to us during COVID. A lot of people were experiencing the same feelings. They weren't sure what's going to happen. And those that actually came out of the pandemic very much regulated, very much were maintaining their own mental health, were the ones that accepted that we do not control everything. And they kind of regulated themselves by actually accepting that, hey, I can look at what's happening in front of me. I can ground myself. I can look at small tangible goals. Those are the steps to actually help us deal with what's going on around us.
That's very true. I mean, the point of grounding ourselves and accepting what we're in is not also to spread fear, because the moment that happens within yourself, then you spread it to your household, then to your neighbors, and then society as a whole. When actually grounding yourself will make society even stronger.
Yeah, 100%. And this is the thing. We need to move away from reactive thinking to reflective thinking. Instead of just reacting randomly to random events that are supposed to trigger fear in us, we have to kind of step back and say, what is this happening? You know, why am I experiencing those feelings? What is happening inside of me? How can I help myself cope with all of that? That's a reflective feeling. And also, it will make you take everything with a grain of salt. Like if someone threw exactly like a piece of information that is supposed to throw in like some panic, ask yourself, why is this piece of information being shared with me? What is the purpose? Is it for my safety, or is it expecting me to kind of freak out and panic? And then once I recognize that, you will actually not like step away from being reactive and reflect on everything that's going on.
So is there other ways to actually manage fear other than what you actually just mentioned?
Yes, 100%. First of all, focus on a routine, healthy routine. A lot of people during any kind of crisis, wars, pandemics, economic crisis, those that were really successful talked about three things that helped them throughout it. One of them was they maintained a healthy routine by waking up like 8 o'clock or 7 o'clock in the morning, saw the sun. And I know, because it feels like, oh my gosh, you're talking about waking up and having my breakfast. I'm like, you will have no idea how much this affects you and affects your mood. When you lose your routine, people tend to fall prey for actual depression and anxiety and other feelings. However, maintain your routine. Use a heavy amount of physical exercise, because all of that fear is triggering a lot of cortisol within you. And that cortisol is going to turn into stress, and it might trigger some negative habits such as overeating, consumption, and also limit your overexposure. Good exposure to good sources of information is beneficial. However, overexposure, that's too much saturation of the same thing. And too much of anything is actually a negative. So even if you consume too much water, that's a negative.
That's very true. Yeah, it's true. I mean, even in times of crisis, one's supposed to practice his daily routine as it is, just adding a few things here and there just to keep them safe. And as you said, your brain only can muster up as much information, so drowning it with a lot of information, because you're trying also to see or filter which is the right information and which isn't, and your brain just keeps on working and you stress yourself.
Exactly, and you lead yourself to burnout. And that's exactly what happened with a lot of people, is that they feel burnt out even though they say, I haven't actually left my apartment or my house. I haven't been doing a lot of work yet, I feel burnt out. You'll hear that a lot of times, even though they are in that what we call it lockdown mode. Lockdown mode as in that they're staying at home, they're not leaving the house, yet they are burnt out. Also, the other thing is focus on small tangible goals. So for example, what is my goal for today? What is my goal for the end of the week? And keep it persistent and consistent. Consistency is very much key and needed in times of uncertainty.
Very true. Now, how can parents and leaders support others who are struggling emotionally?
Excellent question. A lot of emotional intelligence.
Okay.
And emotional intelligence starts with acknowledging the feelings instead of like brushing it off, like saying, oh, relax, what are you feeling, so stressed about. Don't disregard their feelings. Acknowledge it. Say, you know what, it is stressful, I understand that, and honestly it must be hard to go through that. People will feel heard. And a lot of leaders throughout history, like Churchill, Roosevelt, even during those times in which they led through crisis, they were really good at keeping it consistent with the crowds. They didn't say, I have all the answers and I know everything. No, no, no. They said, here's what I know, here's what I don't know, and here's how we will push through this. Yeah. They actually insisted on keeping clear communication persistently. So a lot of times, for example, during, again, pandemic, people were waiting for the Ministry of Health reports. Yeah. They were very much assuring for us. It was the consistent communication. Parents can do that. Instead of leaving the children to uncertainty and ignoring the elephant in the room, actually addressing the elephant in the room.
That's very true. I mean, at one point, people were kind of scared of the numbers at the beginning, but then it trickled down and people started to accept that this is fate and this is where we are right now. And they started flipping the channel normally and looking at the reports and the death tolls and all that, until it became something that is, at least we get something that is transparent.
Excellent. And the leadership back then followed exactly the model that we're talking about. They didn't say, oh, I have a clear vision of where this whole pandemic is going to end. They didn't say that. They didn't overpromise, because overpromising will lead to underdelivering. But instead they said, this is what we have right now, and this is how we're transparent. Stay transparent and acknowledge emotions and help them regulate it.
All right. Now, for entrepreneurs and business leaders, how should business leaders respond when sudden crises disrupt the market?
Oh, that's the #1 question I get asked. One of the consultations that I do is business consultations. Yep. And everyone is asking me, what do I do? What do I do? How do I save the business? How do I stay consistent? And it's a mixture of both. First, you can't hold on to everything. You actually need to think strategically. This is the test to strategic thinking. You need to consider what resources I can do without, what resources I need to keep because they are the core values of what we are. And then people will think of, oh, it's sad, I'm like, no, it's not sad. It's actually a great strength and opportunity. When we do the SWOT assessment, which is the strengths, weaknesses, threats, and opportunities, we look for those opportunities. And a lot of businesses have actually flourished. And it doesn't have to require a crisis. Like, for example, Kodak during the film industry evolution, when they shifted to digital, of course, photography, people were freaking out about it, those that were dependent. But then there's other companies and other businesses that saw an opportunity. And that's why a lot of people also in time of crisis make a lot of money and wealth. This is what people need to understand, is that there's those that see the opportunity. And then here's the thing, look for what we call low risks. So what is a decision that I can make that even if it's a wrong decision, I can still backtrack from that. So, but do make that decision. Stillness is actually the enemy for those businesses.
Exactly. I mean, without moving, even small movements, as you said, like small decisions, you will not gain the experience nor the heart to get to the next step.
Exactly.
For you, because you still have to be updated and knowing of the market and knowing of what's surrounding you in general. Even though if you don't have all the strings, but having just small strings, accumulating them upon each other, it will actually open up a door. Now, with that said, what mindset should entrepreneurs actually have in business?
Mindset of adaptability. I always say the word survival of the fittest. Not the strongest, the fittest. Fitness comes from flexibility and adaptability. Those that adapt survive even the hardest adversity ever. So they need to think adaptively. Instead of freezing, for example, during the economic crisis and the stock market crash in 2008, in the States, a lot of banks faced actually the harsh reality of needing to cut costs. One of the key examples was JP Morgan Bank that actually adapted to that. Instead of relying on having multiple buildings and multiple branches, they shifted to digital banking. And that made them today one of the leading banking sector examples of digital banking. They adapted to the changes. They weren't facing the doom of cutting costs as a negative reality. As a matter of fact, they looked at it and said, you know what, let's roll with the dice. But that requires a very much flexible mindset. So they need to have that. Then, instead of saying, this is, like, what do we do and what do we not know? They focus on, what do we need to learn? What can I learn from this? So now I'm learning that, for example, I need to have a strategic mindset. I need to have some sort of a digital exposure to my clients. I need to think of alternative channels, and those alternative channels could be the opportunity for business growth for you.
All right. One last thing is that how do uncertainty and hardship reshape organizational culture? And at the same time, what does history teach us about thriving through adversity?
History has always stayed true to the fact that those that stay true to their core values and shape according to the circumstances were perceived as the visionary leaders and people. We always say what is so special about visionary peoples is that they see through the current time and they look into the future. They recognize that the future belongs to those who are adaptable. And they understand the idea that they need to push through tough times. The circumstances may not be perfect, but if you stay true to your people, if you are staying true to your family members, if you as a leader are staying true to your employees, and you keep a consistent communication and provide clarity and transparency, people will understand that those that were most transparent had actually won the crowds in a lot of history examples.
Very true. The word is adaptability, basically. People that adapt even in time of crisis, they're the ones who are winning.
Yes, 100%.
Well, thank you so much for being here, Faten, and we hope to see you soon again. It's been a wonderful, actually, conversation that we had, and a lot of information that we're thrown around, but now we have kind of a clear vision of how to deal with things like this.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure.
Anytime. All right, all thanks to Faten Osseili, life coach, business and communication coach. Now with that, dear viewers, we'll take a short break and we'll be right back for more right here at Good Morning Kuwait.